Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
Welcome back to the Four Fires Podcast. This is Jeff Rice. I'm so happy that you've decided to join us today. I wanted to take a second and just thank you, the listener, for tuning in, because honestly, if it weren't for you, there would be no reason for us to continue to make these podcasts. And so thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. And I did also want to throw out that the Four Fires texting list is a great way for you to stay in contact with the Four Fires and receive encouragements and challenges. And a lot of times, as we all know, we get really busy and we might forget about some of the things that we should be focusing on. And so the Four Fires texting list is just a great way for if you kind of get caught up in your everyday life and you're being consumed by something, it's just a good little checkup, kind of a wake-up call sometimes. So it's a great resource. I encourage you to send us a DM on Instagram with your name and phone number, or send us an email to info@4-fires.com. You can find that email in the description. Send us that information, and we'll put you on the Four Fires texting list. That's a great resource. I hope you'll utilize it. Today I want to talk about the complementary nature of the Four Fires and why each of the Four Fires is so important and why they work best as a single unit rather than thinking of them as four separate units that take away from each other. So let's start with the physical fire. The physical fire is related to the people fire because if I monitor what I eat and how I'm exercising and stay in good physical health, I am not limited to the types of things I can do with my family and friends. If I do not do what is necessary to stay healthy and I become overweight, I may not be able to play with my future kids the way that they need me to. I may not be able to love my spouse and be intimate to the fullest if I am overweight. I may lose friendships if I'm overweight because I slow down my friends when we want to go for a backpack camping trip or something to that effect. My physical health is so important because I never want to be the weakest link or the limitation to having fun, memorable moments with my family and friends. So that's how the physical fire is related to the people fire, because it can negatively impact or positively impact your people fire depending on how positive or negative or how hot or cold your physical fire is burning. The people fire is related to the physical fire because my wife and future kids will look to me for what a man and a leader is supposed to look like. When I'm in my 40s, I will be the example for what a 40-year-old man should look like for my sons and daughters. Last night I was doing some yard cleanup and I was cutting down a bunch of tree limbs and one pretty good-sized tree, and I was carrying them all the way from the backyard all the way to the front and piling them up next to the road so the city can come by and pick it up. But as I was dragging those big trees and limbs all the way to the front of my yard, I was absolutely gassed. I was so tired, and rightfully so. They were heavy, and I was dragging them about, 150 yards, maybe 100 yards. And I thought to myself, when my sons or my daughters are doing yard cleanup with me, I don't want them to see me one day totally gassed because I can't drag a tree limb. Not that what I was doing was easy, because it wasn't. I think it would have made anyone tired. But I had the thought, when my kids are here, I want them to see Dad as strong and in shape and healthy and able to do hard things. And so that's another reason why the people fire and the physical fire are so directly correlated, because in my people fire, I want my wife and my kids and the people that I'm around to see that I am physically healthy, because I want to be the example for what a strong physical fire looks like. So if I'm overweight and don't exercise and don't monitor at all what I eat, I am showing my future kids that those things don't matter. Then I'll have to ask myself, do I want my sons and daughters to be overweight and not exercise and eat terribly? Of course not. No one wants that for anyone. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 28 through 29 tells us, "In the same way, husbands are to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hates his own flesh, but provides and cares for it, just as Christ has done the church." This is related to my physical fire because if I do not love myself and my body enough to stay physically healthy, I would argue that I cannot love my wife to my full potential. Verse 29 from Ephesians chapter 5 says, "No one ever hates his own flesh, but provides and cares for it." This could also read, "No one ever loves his own flesh, but does not provide and care for it." So if I don't love my own body and provide and care for it, and I'm supposed to love my wife as my own body, then I can only love my wife to the extent or threshold of which I love myself and care for myself. One more thought of why the people fire and the physical fire are related and complementary of each other is most men, including myself, have a high emotional need for respect and honor from those around us. If I do not do the things that are respectable, why should I expect respect? I think we would all agree that something that is super respectable is being physically healthy because it is difficult. I want my wife to respect me, and one of the many ways to gain her respect is by doing the more difficult thing, which is monitor how I eat and make sure that I'm exercising often. Alan and I have talked about this many times, and he says, I'm going to give you two situations, and you tell me which one is more respectable. Bob, who gets up and goes to the gym at 4:30 in the morning and exercises, and then comes back and gets ready for the day and goes out and is productive, or Bob that sleeps in to 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning and never exercises. Which one of those is more respectable? As you can imagine, everyone would say Bob, who gets up at 4:30 and goes and exercises. And the point of that is, most of the time, the more respectable decision is the more difficult decision. So that is why the physical fire and the people fire are directly correlated and complementary of each other. Because as you develop your physical fire, you will in turn get more respect from your wife and your kids and the people around you because you are more respectable. Now, that doesn't mean that being extremely physically fit is going to get you all of the respect from everyone around you. It just definitely adds to you being a disciplined, respectable man who people recognize you as being a disciplined man, and you make hard decisions, and you are respectable, and in turn, you will receive respect. The physical fire is related to the professional fire because the discipline that I practice every morning that I go to the gym can be directly translated over to work and my professional fire. Discipline is a muscle that can be exercised and strengthened over time. So on the days when I feel tired or I lose motivation at work, I use the same discipline muscles to dig deep and keep pushing to get the work done. Because when I do hard things daily, hard things seem easier. Another reason the physical fire is directly correlated with the professional fire is through a quote that I heard on social media one time, and I can't even remember what page I saw it on, so I can't cite my source, so forgive me for that, but a guy was walking down the street, and he asked a guy who appeared to be a successful businessman, he asked him if physical health was important in business. The successful businessman took a moment, and he said yes. And then the guy asked him why. Then the successful businessman took a second again, and he sat there for 3 or 4 seconds in silence thinking, and you could tell he was just sitting there trying to give a good answer. And he simply said, if you die, you're out of business. And this is pretty extreme, but it's true. We could even dial it back and say, if you get injured or you have health problems, you're out of business. And depending on what type of work you do, I know we can't control everything that happens, but we can control how good of shape we are in and how healthy we are to help prevent injury or illness. The professional fire is related and complementary of the physical fire because no matter where I am on the organizational chart, I can and should be a leader. There's an article by Shannon Cassidy titled, Physical Fitness is Vital to Leadership, and I'll put the link in the description to this article. One of the main points in the article talks about the law of mimicry. This is referring to the way people will subconsciously start to mimic or follow the behaviors of their leader or someone they look at as a leader, whether that leader has positional authority or not. So whether I practice good physical habits or bad ones, the people around me will start to mimic those habits if they see me as their leader. There's also something to be said about when a man walks into a room and has a strong physical presence about him that almost demands respect. Now, don't hear me wrong. I kind of touched on this a minute ago. Being a big bodybuilder and being extremely fit and shredded is not going to be what makes you successful by any means. But it definitely adds to the overall ability to lead. Leadership and leading is simply influence. So yes, you can lead without being physically fit. It just adds to your ability to lead if you are physically fit. The physical fire is related to the purpose fire and complementary of the purpose fire because I know that my Creator has given me my body and my physical ability to help me do the work that He has called me to do. And if I neglect and act like my physical health doesn't matter, I'm limiting myself to the things that God has. And the purpose fire is complementary of the physical fire because, again, God gave me my body and God gave you your body. So we should be a good steward of our body by taking care of it. So just like I should be a good steward of my money and my relationships because they came from God also. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 through 20, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? Are you not your own? You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." So now on to the professional fire again. The professional fire is directly complementary of the people fire because professional success allows me and my family to have a quality standard of living. So when I have success in my professional fire, I will be well-resourced, which means I can support my family, be generous, save, and invest. Now, I do want to take a second here as a side note and say there is not a set dollar amount that you must hit in order to be considered successful in the professional fire. Different professions allow for different income levels, and different people have different amounts of drive and what they're striving for. So as long as you are able to support your family, be generous, save, and invest, then that is a success. Whether that number is $50,000 per year or $5 million per year, it doesn't matter as long as you can do those four things. And again, the four fires in this four-dimensional life, we're trying to win at life. We're going after the ideal. So my professional fire helps my people fire because when it is burning hot, that means I will have the tools and the ability to help avoid one of the biggest areas that can destroy family and friend relationships, and that is financial stress. And another point to make here is that the two biggest things that couples fight over and the two biggest things that a man and a woman will get divorced over are sex and money. So I'm going to try my very best to be adequately compensated for the value that I provide so that I can enhance my relationship with my wife to be the best possible state. The people fire is complementary of your professional fire because having good people skills and being good at relationships will help you in your professional life. No one wants to work with or for a jerk. We would all agree with that. If you've ever worked with or for someone who made you feel like they didn't value you as a human, you know what I'm talking about. If you go back and listen to episode 8 of the Four Fires podcast, you'll hear Dr. Greg Moffitt say, "Be nice to people, they'll work harder." Loving your neighbor as yourself and being a good friend or family member can ultimately translate into improving your relationships at work, which can help build your professional fire. The professional fire is complementary of the purpose fire because when I get to the place of understanding that everything that I am gifted to do, my craft, and every dollar that I make is God's, when I get to that point, then I am able to find an extreme amount of gratitude to counter any feeling of greed or entitlement to any professional success I find, or I would even argue that God has given me. So when I get to the point professionally that no matter how hard I worked for it, everything is His. Everything is God's. It produces a sense of gratitude for everything that you have. Now, that doesn't mean you're frivolous and you're not upset if someone takes advantage of you. But what that means is you then are generous and you provide for your family and you invest and you save out of a cheerful heart, not out of, this is all mine, I earned this. So that is why they help build off of each other, and the professional fire and the purpose fire are complementary of each other. When you have both burning hot at the same time, it helps your attitude towards your professional fire because you have an identity as a son or a daughter of God, and your identity is not found in the professional success that you have earned. The purpose fire is complementary of the professional fire because when my purpose fire is burning bright, it just seems like everything with my profession is better. When I stay connected with God, and I'm just speaking from personal experience here, I am clear on where my identity is as a son of God. I don't spend every day looking to find my identity in how much money I can make or how good I am at my craft compared to the people around me. I work hard on my professional fire, but if it is ever taken away from me, I'll be okay, because that is not where I find my identity. On the other hand, if I find my identity in how much money I make and how good I am at my craft compared to the people around me and in the marketplace, and abandon my faith to maintain that, I don't find anywhere near as much joy in my work, and there's always that chance that my income and my ability to perform my craft can be taken away. My physical health can be taken away from me, and my family and friends can be taken away from me, but my relationship with God can never be taken away from me. So that is what I mean when I say, when my purpose fire is burning bright, it just makes everything else better. If you go back and check out episode 5 of the Four Fires podcast, it's a conversation between myself, Alan, Justin Lambert, and Ryan Roberts. And in that conversation, one of the things that Justin said was, I'm a big advocate for you get that purpose fire right, and the other fires will fix themselves. And I couldn't agree more. And now, of course, let's get into the people fire. And so the people fire is complementary of the purpose fire because we all want to have great family and friend relationships. And the only way to have those great relationships is to die to yourself and love those family members and friends with unconditional love. I have to make the choice that if something is important to someone I care about, then that thing is important. And that obviously takes selflessness and saying, I care about what you care about. I don't always do a great job of this, but I'm working on it currently, and I've been working on it for the last 2 years of marriage. And the greatest way for me to experience how to die to self every single day is by studying and understanding the unconditional and sacrificial love of God. How He sent His Son Jesus to die for us so that we could have a chance to spend eternal life with Him. And that goes right into how the purpose fire is complementary of the people fire. So the purpose fire is complementary of the people fire because in order for my people fire to reach its full potential, I must be able to understand the way God defines love, because the only way for me to love my family and friends to the fullest is to try to love them the way that God defines love. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So for me to love my wife and my kids and my friends the way that God calls me to, I must evaluate my relationships with those people through this lens of what love is. Because without God's word, I'd be sitting here left trying to figure out how to love all by myself. And thank you, Jesus, that I don't have to do that. That is why the purpose fire and the people fire are directly linked. So ultimately, I feel like I can't cover every reason why each of the four fires are connected and complementary of each other on one podcast. I feel like I continue to uncover and have new correlations between each fire brought to my attention all the time. Every time this happens to me, it reminds me of two different quotes. One is from Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9, and it says, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." So all of this that we talk about in the Four Fires, and if you've read the Four Fires book on Amazon, you've heard this. Nothing that we talk about with the Four Fires is new. It is just the uncovering of what has always been there. The second quote that I thought of when thinking about the correlation and the complementary nature of all the four fires, and this quote actually is what sparked the idea for this podcast. I actually heard it from Alan's mom, Martha, Miss Martha Kemper. She said, "Everything is connected to everything." And the longer I live, the more I see those two quotes become more and more true every single day. So as you're thinking about your Four Fires journey and the effort that you're putting in or not putting in, I want you to take some time and sit down one night in front of your computer or over a piece of paper and write out all of the ways that you think and see your life improving or maybe not improving because you're not putting energy or because you are putting energy into one of the four fires. And think about how in your life, how it directly, positively or negatively impacts another fire. And feel free to share that experience. Anything you have, share it with us in the comment section below or in the Q&A section below, or send us a DM on the Four Fires Tribe Instagram page. Love to hear what's going on in your life and what those corresponding things are that you found between the four fires. And ultimately, I hope this has been helpful, just thinking about why each of the four fires are important. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that you are currently, right now, actively on your own four-dimensional journey, that you continue to find countless ways that each of the four fires are connected and complementary of each other, and how they all benefit each other so that you can be as four-dimensional as possible for yourself and your family and your friends. And again, if you're interested in joining the Four Fires Tribe and you'd like to get in a fire circle to surround yourself with men that are striving for four-dimensional living, click the link in the description and join the tribe today. Another thing is, be sure to check out all of the other Four Fires resources listed in the description. All of these resources are things that you can use yourself, but then also I really encourage you to share some of the resources or all of the resources with other men in your life that need to hear this message. There's going to be a link for a recording of a live webinar I did last Saturday, and I just go through and I talk about what the four fires are, some emotional stories are of how it's changed some people's life, how it's changed my life, and ultimately what everyone's next steps are for starting their own journey. So I encourage you to share that link. It's just a YouTube link. Send that link to every guy that you know. Because as you'll hear me say on that video, the Four Fires has absolutely changed my life, and I just want to make sure that I get it to as many men as possible because it's changed my life, and I want it to change other people's lives because it's helped me to feel free and proud of myself. I know that my God is proud of me, my wife is proud of me, my family and friends are proud of me, and my life feels fulfilling and completely functional. And I want every man out there to feel the way I feel. And it's not like I'm there and I'm going to be here the rest of my life. I am actively having to work at being four-dimensional. And so I'm not being self-righteous. When you're intentional, life is so fulfilling and there's so much excitement that comes from life when you are intentional and you are actively working to be strong professionally so that you're well-resourced and you have confidence in what you're gifted to do. And when you have a clear identity in who you are as a son of God or a daughter of God, and nothing can ruffle your feathers because you know that is where your identity is. That's where you find your identity, and nobody can take that from you. And when you have a strong body and you're physically healthy and you are not limited to the things that you can do and the memories you can make because of your physical body, and you have strong family and friend relationships, and your home is a place of strength rather than stress, and ultimately you become that man or woman that you want to be, whole in every area. So with that being said, again, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Send us a DM on Instagram if you have any questions on the Four Fires Tribe Instagram page, or send an email to info@fourfires.com, and go live intentionally, and we'll see you next time on the Four Fires Podcast.